bunch of people have joined in, so let's get this started. Hello, everybody. It's NutBallCop. Good evening. We're going to talk about the news and more. If there's something you want to talk about, go ahead and drop it in the chat. If it's on my list, we'll expand on it, and if we have time, we'll go into some more topics. Just the other day, I was talking to you guys here in the live video, and I talked about this in essays too, and I was right. Please do your civic duties and get on juries. The Subway sandwich guy was not guilty today by jury decision. Polo clap. Very good job, America. Very good. Very good. Now, did the sandwich guy, the Subway sandwich throwing guy, did he commit a crime? Yes, he did. He did an unlawful touching, which we usually refer to as simple battery. That's 242 under the California Penal Code. You know, small fine. If you don't have a criminal record, maximum's like 6 months in jail if you're did something very bad. Like you decided to simple battery several people in a bar fight all at the same time, you may get a couple of days or a couple of months in prison. But usually most people, simple battery, you get a fine, you get a little community service, and you get a probationary period. And if you don't screw up again, it's a misdemeanor. It's a minor thing. Well, the Subway sandwich guy, let's review how the charges got worked up by the alcoholic news host, Perio, or how the fucker say her name, the drunk from Fox News. Miss, I can't do a TV show unless I'm on my fourth martini. Hey, I'm on my first whiskey. Okay, I just want to make that clear. I'm on my first one. Okay. She made a video, and she looked pretty hammered when she made the video. That's the one where she was wearing the all white suit. Goddamn, crime is out of control. I'm gonna arrest everybody on felonies. You're gonna arrest everybody on felonies? That doesn't even make any sense. There's a reason why we have infractions, which a lot of times can also are your city ordinances. Sometimes city ordinances are infractions, sometimes they're misdemeanors, depending how the city or the municipality wrote them. Then you have your misdemeanors, your state statute, which is your lesser crimes. Then you have your felonious crimes. And then you have your special circumstances crimes, which are your big felonies, like kidnapping and murder, or taking a hostage during a bank robbery. That would be a special circumstances. But there's reasons that go back to common law, and there are reasons, everything from Sir Robert Peel, law enforcement, to basic administration of justice. There's a reason why you want the laws broken up. It's too dumb to be wearing shades indoor. I wear my sunglasses at night so I can. I love my sunglasses. So you want that breakup of the crimes. You don't need traffic offenses like speeding, doing 45 miles an hour in a 30-mile-an-hour zone or something like that. You don't need those being felonies. Okay, you don't need every simple argument, peace disturbance, shoving match at a bar, whatever. You don't need you don't need everything to be filed as a felony. That's kind of ridiculous. But that was the stated goal of Perino when she took over as a Trump appointee of the federal district of Washington, D.C. Terrible appointment, terrible philosophy, trying to go after going after every single criminal as a felony, because felonies are a different thing. Okay, when we say we're looking for a felon, if we're on patrol and we say we're looking for a felon, that's like way more serious than just looking for somebody. Okay, hey, two guys got in a bar fight. This guy's bleeding from the mouth and the nose because he got punched a couple of times. The dude's in a, white shirt, gold chain, gray jacket, 6'2", go find him, okay, you punch the guy. It's a misdemeanor. Misdemeanors. If you're cooperative, I'll give you a ticket for the misdemeanor and let you go right there on the street. And a felony, I can't do that. A felony, I have to arrest you and I have to take you to jail. Like when I was working undercover on the task force, we caught a dealer and he immediately wanted to flip and give us information. But I was like, this guy, if this guy goes to the county tonight, the gig's up. They're going to know he got pinched. But we just arrested him on felony distribution. So we have to book him. The only way around that is to do a phone booking with the judge. So, yeah, at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, we're on the phone with a judge giving him the description. The detail chief is on the phone with the judge. And we broke it all down. And the judge OR'd him on the spot so he could work with us. Okay. There's procedures, there's policy, there's the whole point to this, the way the crimes are broken down. So when the Subway sandwich guy, they went 3 times to grand juries, plural grand juries, and tried to get this guy indicted on a felony. Then they took to right-wing media, right-wing podcasts, and they threw the right-wing fits. Oh my God, can you see the abuse of the police? I'm sorry, Dear Leader Pornstar Humper just pardoned everybody from the riot at the Capitol, the insurrection. So don't tell me about you care about police officers all of a sudden because a sandwich caused 0 harm and bounced off somebody's plate armor. That doesn't even remotely make sense. So good, super good job by the jury. The whole point of being on the jury, this is it. Okay, and I'm not saying like go to a jury and interfere with decent prosecutions, but when you all know what's really on the table, and I'm pretty sure this Washington D.C. jury knew what was on the table. We're talking about a government that has just come into town and decided you're all criminals, you're all felons, we're arresting you all for felonies until crime goes to 0. Okay? They literally think that they put enough federal agents or the National Guard or the 82nd Airborne into a town, crime will go to 0. I've talked about this before. What is the first freaking thing that happens in a war zone, a combat theater? A black market arises. We in the MPs, we get trained about that big time because the second you cause a disruption to a legal supply chain, a legal distribution center, a black market is going to arrive and replace it overnight. Okay? So if you think you can just declare war to stop crime, that whole premise is ridiculous at face value. Okay? Because in war zones, you get crime. War zones don't make peace until the war is over. And then when you get the ceasefire, hopefully heading toward an armistice, the ceasefire is when you start cleaning up everything. You try to get the distribution normalized. You try to get the civilian shops back open. You try to get normal hospital services up and running. Like The Third Man, the classic movie, which I love. I've seen it so many times, with Orson Welles. And, he's the black marketeer, black marketing the medicine. That's real. That happened in every war we've been involved in. Okay, if there's a supply and if there's a shortage, there's going to be a black market. So how the hell does he think throwing troops and throwing every agent he's got into just a couple of cities for his wartime powers, because it's a wartime emergency? That's all the crap we're getting out of these guys. Everything is an emergency. Okay? Does someone not get him a Diet Coke fast enough? It's an emergency. Let's invoke the War Powers Act. It's facile. So, yeah, if you've got a good CV, you've got a good resume, you're a professional, you're a teacher, a doctor, whatever, some professional credential, apply for a grand jury. Get on the grand juries in your county and your state level. If you get your jury summons in the mail, answer it. Call up. Get on a jury. I know it's work. I know it's time. But this Subway sandwich case shows that juries still have a purpose. Juries are a good thing. Okay? Because pre-juries, you're at the whim of the Duke or the Lord or the King. Okay? You don't get a defense attorney. You don't get to be judged by a panel of your peers. You get to have your little angry finger pointed at you because you're a criminal, and the Duke will figure out what your punishment is. Okay? We do have a better system than that. But it takes our involvement and our civic duty to make sure it works correctly. So, Subway sandwich guy, jury, 2 thumbs, way up, way up. Going back to my essay where I said that the American dream, and I provided data to back this argument up, this hypothesis up, is the American dream died in 1978. It was killed by corrupt politicians and greedy, wealthy families. By 1981, we had corporate socialism, and I haven't seen capitalism at the macro level in our society since I was a kid in the 70s. Okay. How do I know we're not having capitalism? Because there's no freaking way the shareholders could vote in $1 trillion payday for one person. Did you see the news this afternoon? I had 5, 6 people, including my son, my brother-in-law, my friend, all texting me as soon as the news, like, what the hell is going on? Can you $1 trillion? Are you kidding me? And I'm like, yeah, I get it. But this is corporate socialism. Okay? You privatize profits, you socialize losses. Then when you privatize the profits, you turn those privatized billions, tax-free billions, into a weapon in our political system. And that's exactly what people like Musk has done. Musk, his buddy Pal, his little overlord, dear leader, porn star Humper. So, Musk and his $1 trillion payday, there's nothing more absurd than this. But I'm just asking you, I'm begging you, don't call this a fault of capitalism. Because if you'd have tried this shit in that 1955 to 1970 window I talked about in the essay where capitalism actually worked for everybody, okay? If you tried to get $1 trillion payday or whatever the real dollar equivalent, the mean dollar equivalent was back then, and basically going to make more money than most of America combined, you'd have been charged with corporate fraud and theft. There's nothing realistic about demanding $1 trillion payday. There absolutely nothing sane, moral, ethical. It's not a property of capitalism. Okay, he is going to get sued for this, just like he got sued for the $53 billion, which the judge in Delaware said was absurd. They thought the federal courts thought $53 billion was beyond the pale. So he just turned around and went, "Nah, watch this. Now I'm going to ask for 1,000 billion, $1 trillion, or so close to it. Does it matter? So close to $1 trillion." Now this is a pretty horrible situation for the country and the economy to be put in when people can just extract their own wealth and disconnect themselves. They already stratified the economy. At where they are now, the economy that we live in, if you earn a paycheck, okay, and you're not a professional hockey player, I got the Ottawa-Boston game on the big screen here in front of me. Unless you're like one of these fabled, 10x programmers at FANG, Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Google, or, big data company or something like that. You're talking about a stratification level where they don't experience the same things you do when you live in the economy. Like a gallon of milk means that wherever the gallon of milk cost is, whether it's $4 a gallon or $400 a gallon. Okay. When you're a billionaire, do you think the gallon of milk, no matter what the price is in the variance range, do you think that matters to a billionaire? No. If gas is $1.99 like Trump keeps claiming, every fucking day in 2025, gas has been $1.99 according to Dear Leader. There isn't one day in 2025 that's actually been that anywhere in the country. You've had some mid-twos in the Midwest, but you've not had $1.99 gasoline. But whether the gallon costs you $1.99 at the pump or it costs you $15 at the pump, does that matter to someone who's a billionaire? No. Billionaires are so rich now and so far above everybody else in this stratified economy, they buy whole floor condos in these pencil towers in New York City and don't even live in them. They just buy them like they buy expensive art. They know the value of the condo will go up over time. Oh, and the pencil condos pay almost no taxes. So add that to the no tax thing. He's going to get $1 trillion. He will not pay an estate tax. He will not pay an inheritance tax. He will not pay income taxes like anybody that gets a paycheck does. Okay. His capital gains will be minimized. He can put that whole much money into a fake charitable trust, park it there tax free for as long as he wants to, then take the money back out with the profits. Go, look, my money. Okay. None of this would have flown decades ago. This is the end run for corporate socialism. Privatized profits, socialized losses. The bank bailouts. Biggest example in history. Not that we don't have a habit of bailing people out left and right. Frick, we bailed out Lockheed Martin during the Vietnam War. How do you lose money when you're the biggest parts supplier in one of the longest campaigns America has ever fought? I don't know. You would have to tell me that. But yes, we bailed out Lockheed Martin in the middle of a war. Okay, we bailed out the savings and loans industry after the savings and loan industry hung themselves. And the same goofy greed shit the mortgage crisis was caused by, the junk kings were caused by, MCI healthcare, WorldCom, MCI, that was another fraud. Healthcare Southwest, that was another fraud. The frauds just keep getting escalated. They were hundreds of millions of dollars in the 90s. Then they became billion-dollar problems. Then the bank bailouts caused trillions in problems. Now they're going, now I deserve trillion-dollar paydays. None of this is capitalism. None of it. It is more closer to corporate fraud and theft than anything else. But when you have a system that allows certain people over a certain wealth to not pay taxes, direct profits to themselves, re-rig those profits, stock buybacks to amplify their wealth on demand. And then when they make money, they basically choose whether or not they're going to pay any taxes whatsoever over any duration. Because like I said, they can just throw their money into one of these big charitable trusts and go, I'll be oxen free, I'm tax free. And then the day they get a more favorable tax from Congress, that charitable trust is collapsed, then they pay taxes, the small amount of taxes they're going to pay, again, not equal to what you and I pay. Average working person, you're losing anywhere from a quarter to more than a third of your pay to taxes. Okay, the Panama Papers, the leaks, all those things that came out the last few years showed the ultra wealthy are paying 1, 2, 3% absolute max. Oftentimes they're paying zero or less than zero. Now they want $1 trillion paydays. Yeah. If you're calling this capitalism, I would really like to hear your definition of capitalism, because capitalism is private decisions recapitalizing industry. Okay. When he extracts $1 trillion out of a business and puts it in his own profit, how is that recapitalization? That's profiteering, is what Elon Musk is doing. He's putting the money in his own pocket, again, virtually tax free. He is not going to recapitalize any of the money. Now, let me find out here. What is Tesla's market cap as of right now?
Right now, Tesla's market cap is around 1.48 trillion, with the stock trading at about $445 a share.
So he wants just roughly 3/4 of the wealth of the company to be paid to him in one paycheck. How is that capitalism? Anybody? Challenge me if you think I'm wrong. How the hell is that capitalism? Capitalism means you make money by private decisions. You pay your taxes to your community and your country so that we can build roads, streets, have schools, have decent hospitals and infrastructures and parks and whatever. Okay. And then you reinvest and you take a little bit of that yourself as a paycheck. You recapitalize, you build a bigger business. Now he's going to say, I got $1.4 trillion in market cap. Give me 1 trillion of it. That doesn't make any sense. In my head, that just rings as a theft. That's just robbing the shareholders. How did we get pissed off at Bernie Madoff if Elon Musk can get paid $1 trillion out of a company that's only worth 1.4 trillion? And I thought Jack Welch was full of shit at GE, General Electric, because he's the asshole that started all this, the corporate king crap. Okay, never mind. If you're on these executive boards, you pay for nothing. Okay, you are literally treated like a duke when you work for a big company. Okay, I've worked for a big tech company. I worked with upper management. Okay, the global president, the CEO, the CFO, the CIO. Okay, they don't commute back and forth to work. They have cars, corporate limousines, and Uber Black pick them up and take them, whether it's going home or going to work or going to the airport or whatever. We pick up the dime for all their day to day. Okay, not to mention we give them lavish pay packages and incredible banks of stock. But that's not enough. Now, my fear is with a $1 trillion pay package, what comes next? Are you going to want 2 trillion next time? How far are you going to take this concept that you can literally ask? Because if you take the entire life, let's do that. How long has Tesla been a company, a publicly traded company?
Tesla went public back in June of 2010. So we're talking about a good 15 years or so of being a publicly traded company as of now.
Divide 1 trillion by 15 times 365. What do you get as a daily rate?
All right, let's do the math. 15 years times 365 days is about 5,475 days. Now, if you take 1 trillion and divide by 5,475, you get roughly about 182,648, give or take. So
$182,000 a day.
Yep, you got it. It comes out to around 108.
So he wants to be paid $182,000 per day. And that's he's already been paid. He's already got compensation. So he's been compensated for his work prior. Okay. But I'm saying if you just take the whole term that Tesla's been a publicly traded corporation, you take every day and you divide that into $1 trillion, that's $182,000 a day he wants. And the real number is quite much larger because, like I said, he already got paid for other stuff. So this is just the last couple of years. Now, if this doesn't read like complete corporate socialist insanity, absurdity, and a clown show, I want to know why. You're getting robbed. Okay, the big bullshit bill. The big bankruptcy bullshit bill, BBB. What was that about? Robbing the Treasury blind, shutting down every service in America so ultra wealthy people can take bigger paydays tax free. Right out of the gate from the big bill, we don't want our $100 million pay package this year. We don't want our $500 million from getting through a merger. I think my last CEO made like $250 million in the merger after he laid off 2,800 people. Our first CEO was great. Our second CEO was a douchebag, just a corporate socialist douchebag. But now, they get their bill they wanted that rigs their tax-free lifestyle on a permanent basis now. And they immediately jump from hundreds of millions to 1 trillion. Again, what do they want next? You thought you thought demanding the firstborn was a tough penalty? Now they want trillions of dollars as paydays. Holy shit. Okay, moving on. And again, anybody who just joined, if you want to talk about something or you want me to comment on something, just go ahead and put it in the comments. If you want to complain like the last person about my sunglasses at night, go ahead. I'll sing the song again. Let's talk about Zorhan panic. Zorhan completely blew out the competition because the Republicans are too stupid to find a candidate. The Republicans in New York City had the Hillary problem on the national level Democrats had against the first round with Trump. Democrats couldn't decide who, Republicans this time instead of Democrats couldn't decide who they wanted as a candidate. So you ended up with Predator and Wacko as basically the Republican candidates. That tore the Republican vote to shreds. And you ended up with big double-digit wins for Zorhan. But I said this before. I mean, there's no way I'm voting for Eric Adams. He's corrupt. There's no way I'm voting for Como. He's a predator. There's no way I'm voting for Silwa. He's a crank. Okay. So what are you leaving with? The minor party people who don't know what they're doing, or the guy that's got some backing that may be able to actually pass some legislation? Okay. If I lived in New York City, I'd have probably, even though, Zorhan's usually not my thing, I'd have probably ended up voting for him. Okay. Now, the panic about him getting elected. Ted Cruz on the news. Oh my God, the communist takeover of America has already started. I'm like, Ted Cruz, you asshole. You Cancun fleeing asshole. Okay? You know where communism is actually taking place right now? In the White House, where your leader, dear leader Pornstar Humper, is seizing Intel, AMD, and NVIDIA, and now he wants a big chunk of the Alaska Mining Trust. Who's the commie? Zorhan? Socialist. Who's doing the real commie stuff right now? Hell, that right-winger Eric Erickson even said it on his podcast. I almost fell out of my chair and spilled my coffee when I heard him say it. This is all just socialism and communism brought to you with an R. And I'm like, yes, Mr. Erickson, you are correct. When you start seizing fucking companies and naming them state entities, yeah. So this performative angst, how one mayor in one city is going to invite the Soviet Union to take over America, while the White House is the one that's actually pulling the commie shit straight up. Now, I don't think either side should be doing commie shit, and I think we should be careful with social stuff. And I've talked about this before. We should be careful with socialism, seizing the means of production, versus having a strong social safety net. Germany, Denmark, Malaysia, New Zealand. Okay. I'm down with the latter. Okay. But quote after quote after quote after quote today were just like beyond the pale stupid. Like they're absolutely convinced. Like if you're a Texas or a Florida politician, you're absolutely convinced that your state has just failed to communism. And I'm like, why? Is your leadership that bad? If you've got it all figured out, Ron DeSantis, what the fuck are you worried about in Florida? Why do you give a fuck what New York City does? Okay, and this whole thing, if by some miracle, if Zorhan actually does get a higher tax passed on the ultra wealthy, the recent increases to taxation in Colorado and Massachusetts show you're not going to have the result the right wing cranks are complaining about. The wealthy just don't flee because you raise their taxes a couple of points. They stay because of community. Things are run well. They have good infrastructure. You know, this whole fantasy on the Ted Cruz dear leader end of the right wing far right nationalists, that everybody flees the country as soon as you raise the tax 1 percentage point. That it's completely false. The studies just simply don't show that. And another study I read is all the people from the alleged blue states. I know, like California, we're politically blue, but we're not socially or culturally blue. That's just not true. Have you ever been to Orange County? It's freaking Dallas. Orange County, Irvine. Yeah, that's like Dallas or Fort Worth. Okay, go to Stockton. That's like Jacksonville, Florida. Okay, yes, the big cities are liberal, but that's about it. There's a couple of pockets of liberal bastions way up north in the woods, in the redwoods, but we're a pretty mixed state politically because the cities have more population. You tend to have a more blue, more democratic, more liberal state house. Okay, but to say California is quote unquote dyed in the wool liberal, you've never been here. You just frankly have never been here. Okay, San Diego is as conservative as Nebraska. Okay. And just because we have liberal Gavin Newsom as governor, you don't see people fleeing San Diego or fleeing Irvine. Why would you flee Irvine? It's one of the highest freaking per capita incomes in the country for a city its size. Their county is one of the more affluent counties in the California and the country. Okay. They have a good quality of living. Okay. They have a bunch of dear leader loving morons, and they have a bunch of tight ass Latino conservatives. Okay. But, you know, everybody in the world thinks every soul that walks through California, is a right winger. Even the people who are still registered Republican here, and I know a few of them, they're not down with Trump. At least not up here in our neck of the woods. But yeah, down south in these enclaves, these hard right wing enclaves, oh yeah, they are. So dismiss all the Zorhan panic. It's just stupid talking points on a B block on cable TV news and something that somebody will blather about in a podcast. It it doesn't mean anything. Zorhan can't implement policy by himself. There's a giant city council in New York he has to work with. There is business interest after community interest after activist group he has to deal with in New York City. He just can't wave a magic wand. Now, this is where it gets really hypocritical. They're really starting to accuse, and they did this today in a couple of clips I watched. They literally accuse Zorhan of acting like Trump is acting right now, acting like a dictator. I'm like, that's projection. I'm sorry. Zorhan said he's gonna dump troops in the streets with armored vehicles to chase down brown people. That's kind of ridiculous. I mean, yeah, I wrote a whole essay. Go back and read it. The commie grocery stores are a dumb idea. That Zorhan played that for 2 weeks, claiming it was the best idea he could come up with. Okay, well, it's a campaign. I know you got to throw things out there, see what floats. Okay, but seriously, I wrote a whole essay at this. If you think opening up 5 grocery stores is going to countermand the increased food prices in America caused by the consolidation in the grocery space, the logistics space underneath grocery stores, and agriculture, you're a fucking idiot. Like, I don't know how you balance your checkbook if you think 5 commie grocery stores is going to fix grocery prices. That's like literally an impossibility. Um, just a note on the federal judges. We talked about the other day, the Associated Press went through 200 cases, found the judges calling out over 100 lies, just outright lies. They're lying in depositions. They're lying in court to direct questions asked by the judge. They're lying in the filing documents. And the judges are calling them out. So the waylay loss they took the other night in the election, that is going to play out as a challenge to federal judges' authority, because after the other night, it's pretty clear. Dear Leader and his Nazi street gang and his bunch of nationalist goombas, they don't have the majority support of this country. You just don't. You can't take double-digit losses in every freaking election this week and claim that you have some dictum to go running through the country doing whatever you want to do as violently as you want to do it. You just don't have that kind of support. You're lying. You don't have, what do they love to say? Mandate? Not even close. You lost every freaking election. I went through all the numbers. that thread's shit 150 pages long. I was going through the numbers. You lost everything. You even the GOP even lost the supermajority in the state house in Mississippi. Mississippi, not California. What did Mike Johnson, Mr. Grinder himself, say about the elections? Oh, they're all about blue cities and blue states. We knew this was all going to happen. You knew you were going to lose your majority in Mississippi? Your supermajority? You knew that. You knew that, Moses Mike, huh? You lying twat. The judge just came down today. You cannot pick and choose which part of my order to follow or not follow. I told you to restore SNAP payments. You will restore them in November fully, period, end of story. Okay. Now, what the Trump administration and Brooke Rollins try to come back with is, oh, we'll pay you partial payments because, we're being forced to give money to the plebes who don't deserve it. Okay. That's not what the judge said. The judge said, pay the program out. The problem is that $6 billion food and nutrition reserve at USDA is for all the food and nutrition programs. Snack Whip, school lunches, Meal on Wheels, Holden, there's like 7-8 programs there, okay? That $6 billion wasn't even $6 billion, we're finding out. It's more close to 5.2, 5.3 by my last reading. You've got about 18 days worth of funding in that emergency reserve if you're going to spend it on SNAP. The judge's orders has to be followed. I agree with that. But the reality of the road is the judge cannot apportion funds. Only the House can do that. And if the House is out of session, we will run out of money for SNAP payments ordered by the judge in about 18 days. And I don't know how lawfully a federal district judge tells the executive branch to spend money they literally do not have. Because the funding cycle's ending. Unless we pass another appropriation bill, there is literally no money to spend legally. Now, why aren't we feeding hungry people? Why aren't we feeding elderly, the disabled, children, orphans, the people in need in our country? Because Mike Grinder Johnson is hiding the Epstein files. And now even Republicans are saying that. The reason you're not getting health care and the reason you're not getting fed as a poor person or a disabled person or as an orphan is because we're hiding the Epstein files, which we all know have some truth to it, or Prince Andrews wouldn't be Andrew Windsor Mountbatten this week. So we know there's some real things to this. Because remember, Prince Andrew's in Virginia's book. There's pictures of Prince Andrew and Virginia together. When she was alive, she did an interview and said, yes, that's the guy that molested me. That's the guy that hurt me. Okay, so we know there's something true to the Epstein files. King Charles certainly knows it. And he fired his brother over it, over the objections of his sister. Okay? So we're not going to feed people, and we're not going to give them health care. So rich, powerful people who like to rape little girls can hide, even though the government has all the evidence. And I don't think it's just, like I said the other night, I don't think it's just our government has the evidence. I don't think there's one copy. The reason Andrew got sacked the way he did, because King Charles opened up the briefcase and went, "Holy shit!" So watch the federal judges' spaces, especially the district judges, because the district judges are getting pissed. And remember, district judges are special. They're the only ones that get to find finding of fact. So the more they get fucked with by the administration, the more they're going to make their hearings more detailed. They're going to be finding more facts. They're going to be providing so many findings of facts to the appellate courts that the executive is going to be in real trouble trying to defend themselves, because they will unearth everything now. You keep pissing off the judge, they'll keep asking questions until they're blue in the face. And the more stuff they find out that you're involving your actions that involve misconduct, illegality, or unconstitutionality, that's more findings they get to present to the upper courts, the appellate courts, the appeals courts. You know, and speaking of the shutdown, MTV reality host Sean Duffy. Oh God, we picked the best people for governance, don't we? Sean Duffy has just slowed down air traffic. Now, I don't know if you understand. I certainly didn't until I started researching it the other night. Um, when you're talking about 10% of the air traffic, you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars per big airline. Okay. You're talking congestion like you haven't seen since 9/11 at the big interchange airports. San Francisco, LA, New York City, Atlantic, Hartsburg, busiest airport in North America. You start taking off 10% of the traffic, um, the cancellations and the delays are going to be a hell of a lot more than I think anybody expected. Um, Here we go. Get the total losses here. Estimated losses, but based on average flight ticket prices, on a calculated into a weekly rate. Um, Secretary Duffy, who obviously hates commerce, capitalism, and America, um, he's going to make Delta lose about $240 million in the next couple of weeks. United, about 200 million. American Airlines, about 200 million. Southwest Airlines, about 75 million. JetBlue, about 30 million. Okay. All these companies are going to massively lose revenue. Their stocks are going to go down. And that's just the start of the problem, because I don't think Americans, because you don't think about it, it's transparent. We've been using a system for decades now called just in time. The logistics system, just in time, which means forward staging in warehouses, quick shipping through airlines and air freight. Get you your products quickly, get your parts quickly to you. Okay, just in time is a big thing in the computer industry. I made a lot of money in the '80s and the early aughts doing just in time repairs and fulfillment. Um, when you're the guy that can get your hands on the parts or the replacement kits or the upgrade parts, whatever, and you can get them to the business and you can do the upgrade that night, that's super, super valuable, especially when they're running into a real time problem. So you start carving off 10% of all flights in America, you start talking about hundreds of millions of dollars a week taken out of the economy. Okay. You're talking about layoffs at the airlines. You're talking about hours being cut across the board for staff. Okay, we already have enough negative pressure caused by tariffs and stupid tax policy and mania immigration policy that's truly hurting the economy. Okay, then you had the shutdown. Now you're going to start shutting down and curtailing air traffic. They started this morning. And this is going to be a huge thing, especially the more further you are away from your source for your product, or the more remote you live, the more rural you are. Okay. Because a lot of people don't know is like a lot of your critical pharmaceuticals, when you have that automatic subscription through, wherever it is, through United Healthcare, Kaiser, wherever you get your health services, and they get you on the by mail prescription services. A lot of the critical medicines, that must be delivered because the person's going to be harmed or get further sick by not taking the medicine. A lot of that is shipped by air. Okay. A lot of your critical supplies for fulfillment are shipped by air, not by truck or rail. Okay. Once you take 10% of the flights out, now you've got a logistics and shipping problem, because people don't realize this split in the transportation industry. When it comes to your packages being shipped, more packages are shipped in the belly of passenger jets than they are air freighters. Yeah. Wherever there ain't suitcases and dogs and crates and coffins of people that need to be sent home to be buried, whatever extra space that's in the belly of the aircraft, and I don't know if you've ever seen the belly of an aircraft, especially on the new birds, they're quite large. There's a lot of cargo space on a modern bird. Okay. That's all filled up with packages. Like, they know how much room they're going to have, and they get an estimate on how much they can stick into there, because that's a moneymaker for the passenger airlines, is filling up the spare space in the belly, the cargo space, with packages that need quick shipments. Okay, well, take 10% of that out of the system. Okay, a lot of your packages are going to get diverted to truck and rail. That's going to really slow things down. Now, you're going to hear the outlier nightmare story about how somebody's heart medicine didn't arrive in time, and the guy ended up in the hospital or worse. Yeah, that is going to happen, because our whole system is set up to do this just in time, with air as being part of the component. You keep curtailing back air traffic, you curtail a lot more than just plane flights. You curtail jobs, you could curtail local revenues. Um, even airport staffing, um, baggage handlers, the whole ecosystem at the airport gets cut back. Okay. Tax revenue for your city gets cut back. Okay. They're canceling flights left and right. I think the last count was 1,800 flights got canceled today. Okay. That's less customers at your airport. That means less tax revenue for your city or your county who manages the airport. And they think this is okay because we have to keep the government shut down until we surrender our health care for people who can't afford health care that's not provided by an employer. And I've already seen people are posting. They're posting it on Blue Sky and other locations. They're posting up what their bill is now and what their bill will be after the subsidy is taken away. People are seeing their bills change from $1,400 a month to $3,800 a month. Okay. Also, we can give a guy who wants $1 trillion paycheck. Also, we can give him a tax-free lifestyle, so we can spend our money handing. I mean, we're cutting off SNAP payments that cost us $8 billion a month, but we're giving $40 billion to President Milei in Argentina, so we can run a con in that country, which is backed by one of Trump's financier buddies. So $40 billion to a racket being run out of Argentina, but no money for SNAP, no money for farmers. And then you're going to lie and tell them, oh, the terrorists are making up all of this. Are they, though? Are they? No. Not even close. So we're getting into the point where, and I actually looked this up in my research thread here. If we don't get a 1.5% of growth this year, we're going to stall the engines of the economy. And 2026 will be a nightmare. Okay, we're talking like the 82, 83 recession or worse. Okay, you think jobs are tough to come by now? Have a huge slacky recession in 2026. See how jobs are then. They'll be a lot worse. Okay. Now, the more thing I'm worried about is, yeah, we're getting close to stall speed here because of all the stuff they're taking out of the economy, so many obstacles they're putting out. They're completely destroying tourism. Okay. Through their immigration policy, and they don't seem to care. So they're taking on all these costs. They're blocking revenues. They're charging Americans more taxes while lying to their face, claiming it's not a tax that China's paying it. Meanwhile, I'm worried about the engine shutting off. And if we don't get a 1.5% of growth, 2026 is going to be horrible. Yeah, so we're bailing out Argentina for 40 billion. And how does the internet and right wing cable TV news respond to the bailout of Argentina with 40 billion? There is a talking point that's out there tonight that I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. You got to be royally kidding me. They're trying to convince people now that SNAP dollars spent raise food prices. No, no, no. By the way, WIC does. WIC does cause a slight increase in infant formula because of the supply-demand problem. There's so much malnutrition with infants and children. When we do give them the money, they tend to saturate the product that's in demand, and it does have a slight effect on infant formula. But SNAP dollars at your grocery store, it's negligible. Again, the high prices at the grocery store is because you have a private equity company who owns most of the labels in the big section of the country. Consolidation is your problem in grocery prices. You've created hyper concentrated single interest corporations that now own massive space in the grocery sector, and they can raise prices at will because there's very, very little competition. But Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham want you to know that, SNAP dollars being spent raises your food bill. Okay, last week it was SNAP dollars being spent on fillets and top shelf liquors, nail salons, and expensive weaves. Which one is it? Are they buying up all the products at the store, causing massive price spikes? Or are they actually taking their dollars to the cosmetic store and getting nails done and getting weaves? Which one is it? It can't be both. Okay, they get like $8 a day. They can't be buying fucking top shelf liquor and fillets and getting weaves and buying up all the grocery food, raising your prices. That all can't be happening. All of that cannot be true at the same time. But that's their talking point. That's their stake in the ground today. Well, you want to know why grocery prices are so high? You know why your beef prices are so high? Because we had a lull in the calving. People, that's another thing I didn't understand until I looked into it. I didn't know. I understand, like, calves are born in Hawaii. They're moved to feedlots in Nebraska. They're finished in California. They're slaughtered here. They're packaged there. Boom, 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 boom. It's, it's spread out. It's a big distributed market, many layers in there. And we went through a period where we simply didn't have enough calves. Okay. When you don't have enough calves, you physically have less meat to process, less meat to put on to package and put on the trucks, less meat to put into the cooler at the grocery store. Okay. You know why your eggs were higher? Bird fucking flu, not SNAP dollars, you fucking idiots. Bird flu. When you have to chop off 100 million chicken heads to prevent a disease from spreading further, that caused your egg price spike, not SNAP dollars, not socialism. We have one form of socialism in this country. It's corporate socialism. Protection of the wealthy by privatizing profits and socializing losses, and now demanding ridiculous paydays, absurd paydays. So don't believe the hype. Don't believe the lies. They're lying to you on purpose. Okay. If you really do think there's a left and the right anymore, you're not paying attention. There is the 0.1%, and there's sickies, sycophants and lackeys. And then there's the rest of America. That's it. And we're being raked over the coals right now. Okay. And it isn't just $1 trillion pay deals. It's systematic across the board. They are ruining any chances of anybody having a safe, happy, healthy life in the middle class. Okay. Because if you don't have health care, you can't afford your truck note, you can't afford rent, grocery prices are sky high, insurance is fucking ridiculous. Not just health insurance, but other forms of insurance is getting ridiculous. Our big crisis post the midterms could be an insurance collapse. We're one big storm away from the insurance companies going, not our problem anymore. Remember after Hugo in Florida that wiped out Miami-Dade County? All the insurance companies went, not us. We're bankrupt. We don't exist anymore in Florida. It's all your problem, taxpayers. We could be in another cycle like that, while Elon takes his $1 trillion out of the system and puts it in his own pocket. Now, if they were giving us anything, I'd complain less. But they're taking everything while they're covering up the fact that they like raping little girls and raping women, while they run literal street gangs as law enforcement. We're in a shameful period. We're in a shameful, just like everything is a lie, everything is propaganda. Whatever the real cause of the problem, we're going to tell you the exact opposite. You literally believe a woman spending $20 at the grocery store on SNAP dollars because she's got a couple of kids and a deadbeat dad. You think that's the reason a goddamn chuck roast is $13 a pound. How simple are you? Because that's one thing I will go after people for you. If you don't understand, there are people here to teach. I am willing to teach. I am willing to mentor. I've been mentoring my whole adult life because I was mentored as a young man coming up. I mentor now, especially in the technical industry, taking young engineers and technicians to show them how to actually survive in this tough industry, because it's not an easy industry. Okay. We're being deconstructed as a society, a culture, and a nation for the profits of a very tiny handful of people. And unfortunately, most of that tiny handful are corrupt crooks, and many of them may be on the Epstein list. Okay. That's why I'm so happy about the election this week. Okay. Like the one in Virginia. The free freaking county blew away Harris. Spanberger, the Navy pilot, blew away Kamala Harris in every single county in Virginia. And the woman they put up against Spanberger, the old black lady who took old school right wing racism and just pointed it at queer folk instead. She's black, so I can't get black racist, but I'll get queer racist. We'll get queerisms going. I hate all isms; they're stupid. Ferris talked about isms in the movie. Don't do isms. Yeah, I watched the debate highlights. It was like 12 minutes of the debate, in a little compilation highlight reel. And I'm like, every talking point of the right, this woman embodied. And she's 100% Trump. And I hate the queer folk. Okay. And I have a right to hate the queer folk because I am a black conservative. None of that fucking sold in Virginia. In Christian Layden, Virginia. Okay. Loudoun County, I went through the polling data of that county. Wow. Republicans got their they didn't get their head cut off. Republicans got their head cut off, put in a box, lid on the box, bow tied, wrapped, and handed back to them. That's how bad they got their ass kicked the other night. I haven't seen a beating like this since Rodney King. That's how much the Republicans took it in the head, and I couldn't be happier. As an old Ike Republican, remember my formative days, I was more of an Ike Republican. Today, I'm more of like a groovy libertarian, center-left libertarian, which what that means. But I was giddy when I was watching the returns the next day. I started going through the data, and it was just a string of beautiful, beautiful data that people were just not buying it. Like, no, I'm not signing up for this hate parade. I'm not signing up for this goddamn fraud of the BB bill, which is just a goddamn welfare payment to people who are already wealthy. We've already been going through this since fucking Reagan. This is why I hate corporate socialism. When you read my essay, American Dream was killed in 1978, we need to go back to the capitalism of post-World War II. That's where we need to be if we want to survive. Now we're going to have to modify because the whole world's changing. Okay? Peter Zeon said something smart the other night. He usually says many things smart during his videos, but one thing I thought was a real crescendo of intelligence there was whatever label of political system and financial system, economic system you have in your head from history, that's probably not going to work in the future. We're probably going to need some sort of guardrailed capitalism with a defined social safety net. Something we've never or no other country has really done before. We're going to literally have to say, what is the quality of life in America and what standard do we need to adhere to and how do we fund it? We drive our economy through capital investment. Okay. But then we have to tax that investment at a reasonable rate so we can pay for a clear, moral, ethical quality of life for all Americans. For humane conditions for people who are in custody. I've been an advocate for that since I was in the Army and in the police department. Okay. I was a guy wearing a blue uniform in the 90s complaining that our jail was wrong. We needed a facility for, quote, third sex. I can't put a transgender or transvestite male, somebody with male genitalia in the drunk tank on a Friday night. That's just going to start a fight. I can't do that. That's unethical and it's unprofessional. Okay. So, you know, we know we have a lot of systems that need to be addressed. We know we have a lot of things that need to be changed. The only way we get through it so we can get to a point where we have to change, we have to think a little differently. Zion was right. It's going to be some modified. We got to get rid of corporate socialism and every aspect of it. Okay. But then we need to go back to capitalism with a big, giant, bleeding heart. Okay. Because a lot of times groovy libertarians like Neil Peart from Rush often identified himself as a bleeding heart libertarian, which is pretty close. Yeah. I want people to be taken care of. I don't want violence in the streets. I don't want walled cities of wealthy people and everybody else, the pubs and the dregs, get to live out in the wastelands. No. We can do it better than that. Okay, because there is a country that lives, in a compound wasteland environment. That's called Somalia. Okay, there's plenty of freedoms in Somalia. Not much safety though. Not much of an economy. Not much of a chance to get older than your mid 30s. If you're a woman in Somalia, you're pregnant by the time you're 13 or 14. You have 5 kids on average by the time you're 19. You're usually dead by your mid 30s. Plenty of freedom though. I think we can do better in America. And we don't have to lie about poor people. And we have to vote in the people, and that started this week. We have to vote in the people who are going to call bullshit to bullshit. Okay. The insurrection was a crime. Wealthy not paying his taxes is bankrupting society and creating a mess. There isn't a 2-tier legal system that's based on who you know politically. Wealth is not a determination of morals or ethics. Boy, have we learned that in the last 10 years, huh? Okay. So, good job, jury. It's our job to get on the next jury. I'm gonna look up where the next rotation is for the grand jury in my county, and I'm going to reapply. I applied like 8 years ago. I wasn't accepted. I'm gonna apply again. I always answer my jury summons, even though I know they're not going to take me. Even though I will happily get on a civil jury, but a lot of times once they realize you're a cop and you understand investigative methods, the last thing is, especially a defense attorney in a criminal trial, the last thing they want is a trained peace officer on a jury. But I try anyways, and you should too. Get on the juries because there could be the next Subway sandwich guy who's getting railroaded. Okay. And I know, like I said, I know you're not supposed to consider things outside the jury room, but you can't help it in this environment. Okay. And that played into the vote this week. I want to charge everybody with felonies. Everybody's a criminal. Everybody's a drug dealer. As long as they're not rich and white, they're a drug dealer. And I find it pretty hypocritical coming from the Trump family because I don't think I've ever seen Don Jr. sober in public. That boy loves being tweaked. And I'm not being a hypocrite. I love my whiskey. Have a little vape. You do what you got to do. I don't care, but I don't go in public acting like an asshole. But everybody else causes the problem with drugs, and this has been the whole drug war, the whole thing through. And vote for people who are going to end the goddamn drug war. Okay, because the drug war is how you end up with ICE in tanks in the streets. That was just a compendium of an old bad policy that the dear leader administration, the regime, decided to make a hell of a lot worse. Okay, you don't need tanks in American streets. Sans totally exigent, rare outlying circumstances like the San Bernardino machine gun attack. I'd at least want to be in an armored SUV. By the way, that's what I suggest in my police department. Don't get a tank. Just armor up the SUVs. They block bullets too. We did it in West Germany. We use Ford LTDs that are bulletproof and Mercedes. The Mercedes were basically rolling tanks. The bigger Mercedes, the fully armored ones, could take an RPG-7 and keep driving. Hell, where was it? I forget where. Mannheim, maybe? Somebody set a landmine underneath a sewage head, the plate head in the street, and used the head as a projectile into the bottom of the general's car, bent the car up so hard it jammed the doors. So the German fire department had to cut them out with the rescue tools. Both their ears were bleeding and they were bleeding from their sinuses because of the overpressure, but they both lived. And that was a bomb. That was a big bomb. Okay. So yeah, we already went through that in West Germany and having real, beyond normal everyday police threats. But that's still not the justification for what you saw on Canal Street in New York City the other day. 3 tanks rolling down the street with 40 fucking people in battle jammies. Fuck that. Okay, look again. What are we trying to be Somalia? We shouldn't. You know how small Somalia's economy is? We should be the safest country on earth. And we easily could be if we didn't have so many greedy, goddamn, ultra wealthy people in this country. Because if you just took care of a little bit more of the people, you gave a little more money to spend, you put some money, injected some money in cities that really need it, you'd see a night and day change in the crime rate. Look at the tech boom. I remember being new to the Bay Area during the tech boom, and everybody was working. I mean, this was the 90s. Hell, the Carl's Jr. on First Street in San Jose, 90s, 1750 an hour to go flip burgers at Carl's Jr. in the 90s. That's how hot the economy was. Everybody was working. Crime was at an all-time low. Okay. Gangs are going to be gangs. Crime doesn't disappear. Crazy be crazy. We understand that. But the overall crime rate plummeted when everybody was working. Okay. You want to lower crime? This is not how you do it. This is the exact opposite of how you do it. Give $1 trillion to one dude to take away from everybody else, you'll create crime. Don't have health care, including mental health care, you're going to make crime worse. Have a shitty education system for the majority of the children in this country. Instead of going to college, those kids are going to grow up and go to county jail and state prison. And they're going to be collecting what? Those welfare payments you hate. You could have taught them to be a good kid and a good citizen, give them an opportunity to get into the trades, go to college, join the military, make a great life in America. But instead, you tried to fuck them because you wanted $1 trillion paycheck. We could be a lot better, people. A lot better. If we can get our family and friends and our neighbors to stop listening to bullshit. Okay? There are no nanobots in vaccine, you Robert Kennedy morons. Okay? SNAP does not raise the prices of fucking groceries. Fuck you, idiot. And now people are convinced that if you're Canadian and you follow Danielle Smith or Peter Poilievre, the Trumpites of Canada, you believe you're giving free oil to America and you're getting screwed. If you're an American Trumpite following Stephen Miller, Ross Vaught, and Dear Leader, you believe that we're subsidizing Canada. Same story, two different relativities, same lie. This is what we've got to overcome. But we got to overcome a lot of things, like bad court actions, bad tax code, but where we need to work is stopping the lies. And when people say these lies, we got to call them out and ask them to stop being so stupid. Like I remember, like during one of the breaks of the pandemic, my brother-in-law came out from the East Coast, and we're standing at a really nice restaurant up in the Sacramento area, waiting to go out with the in-laws and the family. And he's talking, and he's going like, I couldn't, and he's a cabinet maker and a professional drummer, drummer at night and the weekends, pro drummer. He's always like in 3 or 4 bands, and he's a cabinet maker and installer. He's going like, I don't know why. I goes, this is not my thing. This is not my domain knowledge. He goes, I've spent more time reading about medical history in the last 3 months than I have my entire life. And he goes, none of the lies about the pandemic or the vaccine make any sense. And he's going, I spent 4 hours the other night reading about smallpox. I go, good. So at least you know the information. And of course, everybody in my family got their vaccines. Because we weren't listening to the bullshit. We especially weren't going to listen to frickin' RFK. Probably one of the worst con artists in our society. He is the Bernie Madoff of health. That's how bad Robert Kennedy is. Okay. Did you see him run out of the room when the guy passed out? Now, credit to Dr. Oz. At least he was a real doctor at one point before he totally went crazy and started his Oprah grade bullshit. At least he ran over and went, oh, there's a medical problem. Let me help him. Robert Kennedy saw that guy go down in the Oval Office Day and ran out of there like Wild E. Coyote. Looking like he's the guy with the murder weapon and he needs to escape and ditch the gun. So don't believe the hype. Don't believe these cronies and assholes have just filled our lives in the government right now. And this week was good news. The elections this week was really, I may not completely agree with everybody that got elected, including Zorhan. Okay. But I can tell you right now, I'm really happy it wasn't Eric Adams. I'm really happy it wasn't Cuomo. I'll work with Zorhan. I'll work with anybody. I told the same thing to people here when I ran for writing candidate for mayor to fight against the police militarization and the delivery of the tank, among other issues, including uncontrollable debt and the city lying about their finances. That was another big issue. One of my biggest backers for mayor ended up being a total lefty. Like, she self-identifies as a communist sometimes. And she was like, oh man, all the local stuff he's talking about, yeah, he's right. And I'm like, okay, thanks. It's not left or right. It's what works and what doesn't work. Yes, you can have your base philosophy, but then you got to get IRL. You got to get in real life. What are we going to do for real going forward? Okay, there are no utopias. Whether the far left comes up with a utopia or the far right comes up with a utopia, both are bullshit. Both are fantasies. Both aren't real. So let's figure out what works. If I can work with the lefties here in my town and get backing to run for mayor, my little weird ass, okay, I think a lot more people can work together than you realize. We came so close that following year of actually getting a slate to run and take the city council over. And I would have loved it because it was a teacher, an engineer, a computer scientist, and uh, a data geek like me. We couldn't pull it together, but I really wish we would, because I think we could have started straightening things out, at least locally here. But anyways, let's wrap up. Great news on the Subway sandwich guy. Get on a jury. That's our goal. Civic duty is a goal of every American city right now. Let's get it done. Don't panic about Zorhan. That's ridiculous. Be prepared. I think the economy is going to slow down before Christmas. Be prepared for that. Start taking measures. My wife and I we're already cutting our spending. Being careful of what we do. We had to paint the house this year because of weather damage. It couldn't wait another winter. But we're really trying to conserve our cash and prepare for a time that will maybe remind us of some big recession periods. And don't buy the hype. Don't don't let the bullshit get to you. Be mad about it, but don't get angry at other people about it. Present the facts, present the data. Okay. Here is the study. I did this earlier today. Here is the study. SNAP dollars do not raise grocery prices. Consolidation of grocery ownership outlets do. Get your facts straight. That's where we should be. Okay. Working on a couple more essays. Hopefully I'll have them up the next day or two. Until then, be good, be safe, be independent, vote, encourage others to vote, perform your civic duty. And as always, I'm just asking you to think about it. I'm not trying to be a mind controller here. I'm not trying to be an influencer. I'm just trying to present some data, trying to present some history. And I want you, at the end of every one of these sessions or end of reading an essay, I just want you to think about it. Put it in your bailiwick. Figure out how, for yourself, how we move forward reasonably. And in the end, let's work together to find out a better future for America. I'll see you next time. Peace out.